We're live.
Yes, it started.
All right, perfect. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our third workshop on our Impact Accelerate series. So a couple of days ago, we talked about the social business Canva and how this is important in developing your business, especially looking at value proposition. And then the week before that, we looked at personal purpose and how it can be a superpower for your social business and for you as well as a social business entrepreneur, especially in a world where the expectations towards business is increasingly going towards the more ethical and holistic side of things. So if you're interested in that and that's something you missed out on, feel free to go back on our last two sessions. They were really fun. We had some really great experts with us and we had a great time talking about these topics. Before we continue with the workshop, we just wanted to let you know that all the speakers here speak both English and German. So if there's at any point something you don't understand, feel free to let us know. We're more than happy to go back, go over it also in German, just in case. And I know we're live streaming, but you can reach us via the chat. Our team is full hands on deck in all of our live streams in the chat, so we'll get the messages as they come. It's just a bit of a delay, so just be patient with that, but we will for sure see them. So be as active as you can in the chat. And with that, we want to test that out. We just want to do a quick check-in. If you're participating, what is the reason why you're here, like what interested you or prompted you into the session? We would love to know. Write that in the chat, and while you're writing that, I will introduce our topic. So our topic today is developing a social business mindset from design thinking to systems thinking. It sounds very theoretical. It will be a little theoretical and have a little technical terms here and there, but don't worry, we're all going to do this together. We're going to ease into the process together. And what this basically means is today we want to go over different tools and different aspects of how you can go deeper into the problems that you're solving. So last week, a couple of days ago, we talked about like how you can create a product based on people's problems, their gains and their pains. And this is like one way to really dig deeper into that and optimizing your product or your service as a business. So we really want to encourage you to go deeper and see how you can really figure out what's the best solution you can bring into this world. And with that, we have our 4 agendas for today. So we're just gonna go over some of the basics, just some terms, some things that you need to know as we move deeper into the topic. Go over what is design thinking, what is systems thinking, briefly, and then we will have a very beautiful moment of inspiration with Dr. Violetta Neumann-Wolf. She is an expert in systems thinking and she has a lot to say about all of these things. So we would love to hear from her and see how she has also been working consulting different businesses in that aspect. So we will probably get to bring a lot with us out of that conversation. And then we will go over how all of these concepts and way of thinking can help us understand greater context into the things that we're working in. And we're going to go over a tool that we like to use in our consulting called the user stories, and how you can utilize that for optimizing your business. And then we'll just round off this session with some closing remarks. And with that, let us move to the basics of today. So what we talked about the last 2 sessions and what's really been important in what we've been talking about is that we're very well aware as social business entrepreneurs that we're not just here for the business. we have a social goal in our purpose as individuals, but we also have a social goal that we want to solve as a business, no matter in what area we're looking at. There's a lot of issues happening in the world, environmental, societal, cultural, and we as social business entrepreneurs, we create businesses because we want to solve these problems and make an impact and make a change. And this is a very positive thing, and this is something the world really needs. As we look at the news and everything, there's just so much happening. This is something that we need to put forward. But sometimes solving societal and environmental issues can be a very delicate matter. If we could still go one back, please. And it needs a very specific and certain approach in order to not create unwanted problems or create more issues as we move forward and deeper into that problem that we're trying to solve, because we're trying to solve it. We're not trying to make more mess. We're trying to make the world better. We want to have a positive impact. But this is unfortunately something that comes with it. So this is something we need to be aware of. And today we'll just go over how we can kind of avoid that and minimize that by understanding that social goal, that social problem from the get-go. Next slide, please. And a great way to do this is really to dig deep in understanding the complexity of the problems and the systems that we're working with. And as social businesses, we develop then new practices, new tools, new products, new services that redesign these systems, that redesign kind of the environment where the problem is to make it better. And how we do that, we're going to talk about today. Next slide, please. So in the Grimmy Creative Lab, when we try to dig deeper into a problem or we want to understand it better, we kind of use two methodologies. One is design thinking and one is systems thinking. And if you look into the corporate world as well and world of business, they are primarily very separated. So some use this way and some use that way. And what we're going to do today is we're kind of combine the two of them, and that's how we say that it's the entrepreneurial way of thinking, because this kind of changes certain perspectives and it helps us to really get to the core of things as fast-paced as a social business can be. And what I also want to say is that these methodologies, we almost want to say, are not just methodologies, but they're more of a lens, like a perspective you can take on to perceive the problems that you're looking at. So it's really more just like taking a new stance or tools of changing your own perspective of the problems you're trying to solve. So you might be asking yourself, great, that's really good to know, but what am I looking at here? So what is design thinking, first of all? Design thinking is a way of thinking or solving problems that is derived from how a designer's process. So designers are people who create buildings, they create packages, they create different products, like all the things that we're using, like laptops, mouses and stuff. They've all been designed before us by designers. They have a certain purpose. There's a reason why they are the way they are. And so this is an approach that was derived from that, of like being purposeful in creating something. And this is very important for social business entrepreneurs, because we walk a very fine line of, we have to be financially sustainable by solving a societal problem, but at the same time, we have to be very aware of the social issue that we're solving. So you have to kind of find that balance, and design thinking really helps you kind of find a very good product that as well has a very good purpose. And the reason of that is you kind of really dig deep into your customer, you dig deep into the people that are using the object. So designers dig deep and trying to understand why people use a certain thing. So we as business entrepreneurs, we dive deep why customers or beneficiaries need our product, our service. And as you can see, it has a very, what do you call this, a specific like way of going about it. So first you empathize with the people, you learn about the audience, who are you talking to, who are the stakeholders, and then you define certain aspect of it. You define questions that you want to ask them. You normally go into interviews, and then you brainstorm, you ideate and create solutions, then you prototype your solution, and then you test it. And normally it's actually a cycle. So once you have the first test, it normally doesn't go so well, so you go back to empathizing, and you kind of do it until you have optimized your product in a certain way. And so that's kind of how design thinking works in a very basic form. There's people who study this for a lifetime and who are very expert in it, but this is just kind of the very top layer of it. So why do we use design thinking? We use design thinking for one, applying designers' way of thinking and methods for problem solving. So we try to be creative, we try to be innovative as designers are. So we try to bring that forth in us as social business entrepreneurs. Then we try to understand the customer's needs by lowering the risk that it's not needed to begin with. So that's always the prime thing of design thinking, is to make sure that it's needed to begin with. And of course, it helps us then as social business entrepreneurs to create business models that is of high value and impact. So now that we kind of understand design thinking, let us kind of look the other way now and see what is then systems thinking. And systems thinking differs that it looks at not just that one thing, that one design, but it looks at the whole bigger picture. So you zoom out of it, and maybe the problem is just one element in like a grander picture and a grander scheme of things. And systems thinking is then when you look at a problem from its complexity and from this dynamic system. And it's therefore a holistic approach to analyze larger problems by looking deeper into the relationship between the elements between the system over time. So the picture I have here, it's called system mapping, and I know Dr. Violetta will dig deeper into this, but you can see there's different elements, they're all connected, and with time they change. And so it's kind of understanding how they're all related, why is it changing, and yeah, what are these connections between them? And why do we need systems thinking as social entrepreneurs? Primarily, we needed to acknowledge that the problem that we're trying to solve is part of a larger system. So if you want to talk, for example, solve malnourishment, and you go into a local place where you try to start your social business, it's going to affect a lot more people than maybe just the children who are malnourished. They have families, there are farmers, there are politicians. And so through system thinking, you acknowledge that it's not just this one small problem, but there's like a grander, bigger thing around it that will be affected. And you have to think about it as you go into the problem. The second thing is it brings out the different nuances in the problem. So certain problems might look the same for people, but when you dig deeper, you start seeing that maybe it's a little different depending on the people that you're looking at. So it helps you differentiate these fine lines between the elements. And as we said before, it helps us reduce these unintended consequences when we try to change the system, when we try to bring change into the system through our social business. So this is my take on systems thinking and design thinking. But I am not an expert in this, as I'm saying, but we do have an expert with us. And I want to move into our moment of inspiration. We have Dr. Violetta Neumann-Wolf, who is an expert in systems thinking. She consults businesses in this as well to try and define the problems either internally and externally as well. And yeah, I think she can tell us more about systems thinking and why it is important and how that can help us as entrepreneurs. Dr. Violetta, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's a great honor and privilege to be here and to have the opportunity to share some of my insights with you. So I will open my presentation. Oops. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Yeah, so I will actually just jump right in. And so I gave this presentation the title From Problem to Positive Impact, Connecting the Dots. Because yes, as you already mentioned, there is a certain risk that we have well-intended ideas on how we want to solve a problem, but actually without a bigger and deeper systemic understanding of what's going on, the possibility is there that we create more harm than we do good. And so that's why I want to focus on the positive impact that we and you all want to create in the world. And to start, to give you a little bit of background. So you are social entrepreneurs, and as such, you are a problem solver. You want a change manager because you want to come from a problematic status quo from point A and move the situation, move the system to an improved state B. And in order to come from A to B, you have to change something. And what I want to refer here is to a study that was done by two management scientists from IMD in Switzerland, because the failure rate of change management projects is extremely high. So it's approximately 75% of all change management projects fail. And they wanted to know, why is that the case? So they did their research on on numerous change management projects. And the interesting insight that they came up with in their study was that it's not due to failures in the solution implementation phase later on, but due to an overly superficial problem analysis phase at the beginning. So you can be, I think it's really easy to understand. If we scratch only the surface of the problem, all we can come up with is symptoms treatment and not root cause solving. And that's why, I picked up this topic and did my research in my PhD for 4.5 years and developed my own methodology on how to come up with an interdisciplinary team of experts with a very holistic understanding and a strategy map for creating impactful solutions. And of course, I cannot give you all the insights from this 4.5 years of research, but I want to give you at least a couple of insights. First of all, about the pitfalls when it comes to dealing with a complex problem, because I'm pretty certain that you are all dealing with complex problems and not simple or complicated ones. And there is a big difference, and this needs to be considered when you create your strategy, because at first sight, complicated and complex problems look very similar. Both consist of many variables, several stakeholders who have an interest in your topic, and oftentimes there are conflicting targets or conflicting interests. And the huge differentiation now is that complex problems have dynamics at play, and you need to consider that. So when it comes to analyzing a problem, it is absolutely recommendable to create a system map, a strategic system map, to derive orchestrated targets and actions from the eagle eye perspective. And this is what normally people don't do. In management practices, this exercise, it seems to be like a little exercise. Oh, I think we can skip that. We don't need that map. But it's extremely valuable, especially when you're dealing with complex problems, because there's this magical number 7, plus minus 2 variables, so 7, maybe 9 aspects you can keep in your short-term memory, but not more, no matter how smart you are. This is based on a psychologist who did this research, G.A. Miller is his name. So, and a complex problem almost always consists of many more than just 9 variables. And we need to support our brain in order to come up with effective strategies. So this is the pitfall number one, that people normally don't create the system app. So this is actually the situation that they find themselves in as a result. So they come up together, they meet in a strategy meeting, and they sit around the table with, let's say they're all experts coming together from different fields of expertise, and they all have differently shaped heads. And this stands for their background. So they have a different terminology, a little bit of a different perspective on what the problem is. And you can be certain each and every one of these experts thinks that their own perspective, their mental model is the right one. And the others don't get it. So that's often the case. And this creates tension in the room because they talk past each other. They do not really fully align, and they don't have a shared mental model. They don't have a shared strategic map to work on and to derive their strategy on. And this tension in the room, I really want to stress that it's extremely important. This has an impact on the whole organization, on the emotions and the beliefs section of organizational culture. Normally, organizations, strategic managers just focus on what is visible, what is tangible, based on a mechanistic worldview. So we focus on the products and services that we want to create in order to solve like a social problem out there. We focus maybe on structures of organizations and also, of course, on goals and strategy and vision. But seldomly do we take into account emotions and beliefs. And why is that so important? And why are you not as successful with your business if you don't take these two variables seriously and use them for the benefit of your organization? So this is what I want to cover focus on a little more, because it's extremely important. And I also want to build the bridge to quantum physics when I talk about emotions and beliefs. And I refer to Einstein here. Einstein is one of the most famous quantum physicists, and I think there is a lot to learn which we did not pick up yet in general business. So he says, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would take 55 minutes to understand it and then 5 minutes to solve it. In management practice so far, it's the other way around. People take, let's say, 5 minutes to understand the problem because they come from a place of, I already know, and then rush into solving it. And, I'm referring back to the high failure rate of change management projects. This is what I really invite you to change it to really understand what's going on. And I also show Einstein for a specific reason, because I want to make the switch here from the mechanistic worldview that we are all accustomed to. So the world is out there, it's fixed. We can see the problem out there. We've tried to solve the problem on the outside and do not consider the insights from quantum physics. Because maybe you've heard of this saying, like, energy flows where focus goes. And that what you focus on grows. It becomes bigger and larger. This is quantum physics. Maybe you've heard of the double slit experiment. So it's really our human awareness, our attention has an impact on what we perceive and experience. We need to take this variable seriously, guys. It's really, that's really my message here on this. Because, so what can you take away from this hint? So when you create your strategy, you have to be absolutely certain that you create 100% positively defined goals. So what do you want to increase by putting your awareness on? I give you a negative example: 0 hunger, 0 emissions, less inequality. These are all negative 0 goals. And just by focusing our attention on it on a daily basis, we enlarge them. This is what I mean with creating unintentional, without intention, negative impact in the world just by focusing on what we don't want. So we need to take into account quantum physics in action in a positive way for positive impact. The next aspect that is sort of correlated to quantum physics as well Maybe you're very familiar with the 17 SDGs, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And approximately 2 years ago, some scientists from Scandinavia came up with the importance of inner work, because there's a huge gap between knowing and doing. And so they developed this inner development goals, and they focus on being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And two aspects that I want to highlight here. So you and your social business you are probably one more dot out there. There are many dots already out there. So it's not about lack of number of well-intended organizations, but we need to collaborate more. We need more of an equal impact system instead of lone wolves trying to solve it all alone. And the other thing that I would like to highlight here is the connection between being and acting. Because how often do you know exactly what you need to do, but you don't do it? You have a strategy, you have your like milestones, and you need to pick up the phone, send an email, reach out to a specific person who could contribute to the success of your organization, and you don't do it. This is called procrastination. And what I want to stress here is it's seldom due to laziness. It's not because you are lazy that you procrastinate. It is because of some mental models or emotions, anxieties, and fears that need to be taken care of in order to unleash you, to make you a powerful force of nature, so that you do what needs to be done and make your business really succeed. So this is the connection between being, working on yourself, and acting, driving change. And because this is so important, I want to foster and focus on this a little more, because you, from a quantum physics perspective, you as a social entrepreneur, you have an electromagnetic field. You vibrate and you send out signals to the environment, and the environment reacts to the quality of your electromagnetic field. And what I want to highlight here is that you not only work on your business outside, but also on your inside frequency management, we can call it. So really work on the rise of your frequency, of the vibration, because this on the outside will create more positive results, and it will help to have a positive impact. So that said, maybe it's a lot, and because it's so much, but we really need to connect the dots and bring this all together in order to be very successful and positive change makers out there. I wrote an article because I found many people do not know about these single dots that need to be connected. So I wrote an article on how can we understand the current crises out there from this deeper systemic understanding from the inside out. So I wrote this article, and I suggested, based on management scientists' insights, like systemic insights, that we do not break a complex problem apart. And this is often the way it's done, because it's easier to approach, divide and conquer a complex problem, break it apart into small aspects, and then handle these small aspects. But this is exactly what destroys the complexity and destroys the problem, and you can never come up with holistic, effective solutions. So this is what I also applied to the 17 SDGs. I created this system map in this article, and I applied also the idea that we definitely need to define positive goals. So far, some SDGs are, focusing on zero goals, zero hunger, less inequality, etc. So I suggested in this article to redefine the goals in order to create a positive impact, also by applying a holistic strategy. So if you're interested in this article, you can scan the QR code here on the right-hand side, or you can also find the article, the English version, on my LinkedIn account. So again, SDG number 17 is partnership for the goals. Two aspects that I really want you to take away from this presentation to wrap this up. Two aspects. This is you. If you work on your inner self and raise your vibration, and other people do the same individually, they are also here and then raise their vibration through inner work, and then you come together, guess what? You will together help each other rise much higher. You create something amazing together as a powerful force of nature, which you could never ever have done by yourself. And this is what I wish for you: create a positive world with collaboration partners and a very high, high vibrating energy field. Connect the dots in the right way. So this is actually my vision for the world, and create this positive impact ecosystem. And if you want to be part of it, let's talk. So thank you for your attention, and let's open the Q&A session.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions for Dr. Valletta, we do have a Q&A portion now. Feel free to write in the chat and we'll receive it. And as you're typing, I also have a couple questions on my own that I will ask as we wait. Right now, social business entrepreneurs have a great opportunity on the market because we're talking a lot more about holistic business and sustainable goals and all of these things. But as you said, we have different experts. So we have these CEOs, these markets, these bankers, the investment side of things. And then we have the social business entrepreneur who's maybe more into the problem, who's reflected into the problem, and as you said, raising their vibration. How do you suggest in your expertise to start such conversations? What's probably like a good way to approach, because it's always hard to start somewhere. So how do you start that conversations, maybe different people, without maybe getting overwhelmed or shy, but to go about it with confidence as well?
I just had the experience with one client, and it was really interesting because she's the CEO of a startup in the sustainability field. And the problem there was that there are 4 key stakeholders involved, and they all pretty much want the same thing. They want to decrease costs and time, because this would benefit all key stakeholder groups. But it was so messy, and just by me helping her coming up with a nice visualization of what actually the problem is and where they do not align their interests, she gave me the feedback in each and every conversation, in each and every meeting. She showed this presentation and communicated to the other person based on this easy to understand visualization. They said, wow, this is exactly the problem that we have to solve here. And it was so helpful to have an easy to understand graphical support. Mm-hmm. And I think that would also be my suggestion, that you, before you go into, maybe don't talk to each of these stakeholder groups at the same time, because they use a different language. You know, someone in the financial sector has a different terminology, etc., like a top manager. But prepare from the other's perspective, understand what do they want, and how can you help them get what they want? Create this win-win situation, really. Think always in terms of win-win, and then create the visual support to bring your message across and make them excited. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really pull them into your solution, not push them or give them something that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm. You know, I love how you're saying to also like be aware of the different languages that people are speaking in different sectors. Mm-hmm. I think one more question is, you're talking a lot about refocusing away from the negative, but more into the positive. And I understand that starts also with you personally. So how do you suggest also, like, maybe to get away from that negativity? Because it is something very ingrained in us through the system as well. So how can you kind of detach from that and be that positivity?
That's a great question, Sharon. It takes effort, in my experience, and you have to be really like the observer of you're the guard of your eyeball. You have to watch really carefully, be super specific on what you focus on. Do you really want to watch the news? Because they come from a very mechanistic worldview. This is the only way the world is at the moment, and that's not true from my worldview perspective. And so what you consume, you put into your subconscious. So in my eyes, stay away from something that pulls you down, and instead really consciously focus on, take away your view and your conscious awareness to something that you want instead. And there are many practices, like practical examples, like what you can do to raise your vibration deliberately. And yeah, everyone has their own preferences, I think, to do that, but it is so important to do it.
Yeah.
And connect, of course, with other high vibrating, like-minded people to find your group, find your community that is so supportive as well.
Yeah. I think that's also like why we do this, to bring social businesses together and vibrate together, yes, in this moment. And I think this also goes into a question from one of our participants. So maybe in like face of like financial difficulties, because social businesses do walk that fine line between social impact and financial sustainability. How is it to like keep moving forward in that positivity within that financial like maybe pressure as well?
I think the circumstances are now really in our favor in terms of money, because the problems just increase so much outside. So the opportunities to get funding, to find people who have the money, even in the private sector, if you can come up with a convincing idea, and this is just a match with their personal values and their vision, what they want to see in the world instead. Again, don't come up with a problem, oh, that's also bad, but they know about the problem, you know about the problem. And now you come from a new field of possibility and make them excited. And I'm sure you can convince them or just inspire them so much with your passion and a cool strategy to solve the problem, that you will manage. And again, it's really put it into your subconscious first, create it from the inside out, that you have the money, that you have the financial support, because you can attract it. It's really, this is the way it works.
Yeah. No, I think also how you say like to bring it into you with the confidence and then bring it outside. I think that's also, I think, where a lot of social business entrepreneurs may struggle, because we're always faced with like all the challenges. So I think that's a really great takeaway, and I think also a very positive note to end this part. I think we're also out of time. We thank you so much, Dr. Violetta, for your insight. It was very inspiring, and I'm pretty sure our participants, I know for myself, I've done the systems thinking workshop, but I always find new things to learn. So I'm pretty sure our participants are writing down all their notes. And
thank you, Sharon. I highly appreciate it.
Yeah, we thank you so much as well. And I think with that, we can move on as well with our workshop. Now that we kind of know how we can go about with the system, how we can learn, it is now about us finding our position, our path within all of this. And how do we solve the problem? I also love quotes. I have a quote from Bill Drayton, who's a very known social impact leader, if you haven't heard of, and also the founder of Ashaka. And I think it sums up our motivation as social business entrepreneurs really well. So he says, social entrepreneurs are not content with just to give a fish or teach how to fish. They will not rest until we have revolutionized the fishing industry. And I think this speaks a lot to our motivation of how great of change we want to bring to the world that we're in. And it's a daunting idea, it's hard, but I think there are a couple of tools that we can use to really bring us into that revolutionizing position. So as we said in this workshop, we're kind of looking at design thinking and systems thinking, and how these ways of methods and thinking, when brought together, they can bring new practices to redesign a system, because that's what we want to do, right? We want to redesign the system. We want to recreate a new system for ourselves, for the future generation, for the planet, that all of us can work in, because we're all stakeholders of this world, right? So we all have to figure out how we're going to fit all of what we need to do and we need to get done in this system, and we're part of creating that new system. So how do we achieve this redesigning? A great way that we look at in the Grooming Creative Lab is empowering your stakeholders or your actors that you work with to be their own designers of the solution, and that ensuring that you don't look at certain actors or stakeholders isolated from their context, but you really go to them and say, hey, let's redesign this together. And I think that's what Dr. Violeta was also saying, like it's a win-win situation. You go to different stakeholders and you say, this is your problem, this is my problem, let's do it together. Not just saying like we as a social business, we will solve it, but also bring in other people and say, let's solve it together. And a great example of this kind of approach in action is the move of the Johns Hopkins Hospital in 2011. I don't know if you've heard of the Johns Hopkins Hospital, but it is a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland in the USA. And they're quite known because of their medical innovations and research that they do, and also the high quality of medical care you get. And they even have two Nobel Prizes in the medical field due to the research that they have. So it just speaks really to the like high impact that they have. And in 2019, they started the process of moving into a bigger building. It was like a multi-billion-dollar project. And the vice president said, okay, we're putting all this money into this. Let's make sure that this move is highly impactful. So they hired a bunch of design thinkers and systems thinkers to start interviewing the different stakeholders around the hospital, and not just the patients, not just the doctors, not the nurses. They went to the technicians, they went to the janitors, they went to the cleaning ladies, like they went to every person that has any kind of connection to the hospital and interviewed them. And this took until 2011 to like really bring the process together. And they found out a lot of different things that helped them design the new building. Like the whole design, the architectural design of the building was changed based on these interviews. And that really just says a lot. And the two main things that they really changed was not even talking to like the doctors who you would think like, oh, they're the most important like stakeholders. No, it was like the janitors who said like, yeah, we don't have enough time to clean the rooms in between patients because the closet's too far, or we don't have the right infrastructure. And for them, they realize that this actually has great impact, because if the cleaning people don't have enough time to prepare the room properly, first of all, patients have a long waiting time then in between, which affects the quality of the care they give. And also like you're not ensuring the safety, like with the infectious diseases and all the chemicals that doctors are working with. How can you ensure the safety of the patients? So they realize this is actually huge. So they changed that structure. And also patient transportation was taking way too long and was too complicated. So they optimized the routing system and the communication system, which are all huge money, fundamental parts of the hospital. So you can see really that taking the time to understand the problem and really empowering the people around you who are not just maybe the most important stakeholders, but really digging into like every angle that you can find, really brings everything together and brings higher impact and positive impact. And that's what we want. We want that high value of social impact in our social business. And so I think I just want to round this off by saying what are actually the benefits of doing this, because I think what we haven't highlighted completely at this point is it is a long process. It can be exhausting, it's tedious. So why is it worth to go about it? Well, first of all, you will, as a social business entrepreneur, you go through this process, you will find that social problems are interrelated. They cannot be solved independently. And I think that's what Dr. Violetta was also saying. Like, if you are a social business who wants to solve malnutrition, you will find that you will stumble up, for example, in energy problems, supply chain problems, women's rights probably. So these are different things where you might have to start collaborating with other social businesses to create like a different ecosystem within that local region that you're working in. And with that, as well as entrepreneurs, we start developing different perspectives of how we go about our business, on what's really needed and how we prioritize when it comes to creating solutions. The other thing is we start developing an empathy towards the system that we're working with. We're aware of the different people that we're working with. When we take decisions, we feel more confident in taking decisions because we know, okay, this will help the majority of the stakeholders that I have. I know them, I know their perspective. So this is a better solution than maybe going a different route. And also you find the tensions between these stakeholders. As Dr. Violetta said, all these different perspectives, they create moments of tension where maybe people want different things. And it might be daunting for us as social business entrepreneurs to dive headfirst into like tensions. But actually, once you start resolving these tensions and you start untangling them, that's actually the place where true social innovation and creativity actually takes place. When you start solving impactful problems for different people through one solution, that's social innovation right there. And those are the things that we actually should look for, because that's where we bring the change. The third thing is we strengthen human relationships to enable learning and creativity. So it's not just collaborations within us, but as you go to different stakeholders with like maybe very similar language, you start creating a framework that people can find commonality and common language, common perspective, and they can start communicating better with each other to also solve the problem. You enrich the relationship of different people that you work with, and you enable creativity, because once these perspectives all of a sudden can talk to each other, they start becoming creative in how to expand kind of that language and that framework that you are working with, and they become co-designers in that solution that you're then creating. And lastly, I think our main goal as social business entrepreneurs is we create a systemic solution that serves a purpose. And I think that's our ultimate goal, right, as social business entrepreneurs, to create solutions that are purposeful, that are valuable, that are impactful, and where we can really see the change and see that these pains that we're observing slowly start to fizzle away. And that all sounds really good and really great. So you might be sitting there, okay, good stuff, but what do I have to do with it? Like, what's my role in all of this? Like, what can I do? Because this sounds great, but I don't know how to put myself into that situation. And it's actually quite easy. Us as social business entrepreneurs, it's our role then to start empowering the people around us, to start researching these underlying connections, these underlying tensions within the stakeholders that we're working with through our business, through our solution. And one of our main ways to do this and to start this process of empowering the stakeholders around us is by gathering user stories of your stakeholders. So user stories, they're very short statements about your business that talk about how people perceive like a certain feature, a product, or a service that you may have. And it's a very easy like form. So you have as a, and then user type. So you will have different user types or stakeholders or beneficiaries. So you will input that I want to, and then write down the action or the feature or the goal of that stakeholders, then so that, and then you put in the motivation of that stakeholder. So an example would be, as a professional working in the digital field, I want to share my expertise and digital skills so that I can help someone else by bridging digital divide. So you can really see like that young professional wants to share their skills to limit that digital divide that we have. And a different stakeholder might have a different motivation, but maybe have a similar goal or have a different goal with similar features. And then you can kind of see like how your stakeholders then fit together. And if you're not very sure how to go about like a user story, or find it difficult to really jump into that perspective of your customer, user, stakeholder, we recommend doing user interviews. This is a framework we work with at the Commute Creative Lab. It's basically like a thought journey of how you can create interviews, really go to different stakeholders and start like mapping out the environment around your social business. So the first one you do is you identify people best suited for your interview. Of course, as a social business entrepreneur, we do still have our own motivations, our own goals. So some people might not be relevant from the beginning. Some people might be more relevant. So you kind of write them down to see who would be the most relevant, and really also to concretize it, because social businesses, we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of money, so you can't interview like 100 people, but maybe you can do like 10. So you start with like 5 or 10 people. And then once you have that and you understand who you're interviewing, you start to look at why you're interviewing them. So you identify the key topics that need to be covered during this interview and how much time you will take on each of the topics. Sometimes for this, it helps to do like an initial desk research or initial interview where you interview 2-3 people and you ask them like, hey, what's this topic for you? Like, how do you connect with this topic? And from there you can optimize or find really relevant questions. And it's also a great opportunity, like one of the topics you can go over is gaining feedback. So like if you're looking to expand or to scale up your project, or you have a new product, it's also a good way to test it out and say, hey, what do you think about this? Is this something you would need? And also challenge your own assumptions, like as Dr. Violetta was talking about, like these values and emotions you have. Like it's good to also maybe bring them in and have them challenged by your stakeholders. Like, is it correct to think about this and this? Do I assume right that you feel like this and that towards this situation? Because sometimes maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something that we've been fed in, and we need to like restructure how we think so that we can also move forward better as social business entrepreneurs. And then I think a very important one is defining an opening question. So it's hard to start that conversation where you have to be open, inviting, but at the same time, you need to be very concise. So we always recommend to start with like empathy towards the person in front of you. So a good question can always be like, can you describe a typical day in your life? Or what is your goal, your ultimate goal in life? Or what keeps you up at night? So with that, you kind of gain insight into the person, you empathize with them, like, hey, I want to hear from you. Who are you? Let's get to know each other. But then at the same time, they're also talking about the topic that you need to talk about as well. Lastly, it's just about categorizing the questions that you have. You split them into different chapters and categories, and you really bring all of that together as a ready to go like question portfolio when you go out and do your interviews. And I know our team has our workbook prepared as well. And in this workbook, you will find this very board, and as well as the user story framework. So we'll encourage you to just we'll take 15 minutes for you to maybe also like reflect and go through the user interview board and see maybe yeah, who might be like really good people to interview. If you're not sure, it's also good, as Dr. Violetta showed, to map it out also, maybe a little, like draw and say like who is in your field, and go maybe also to reflect on the topics. So we'll just take 15 minutes for you to go over the workbook, take some time, reflect, and also think about the questions at hand, and maybe start on the exercise. And then after that, you can share with us also your questions as you had. Most people, they have their questions once they start working on something. So feel free to ask your question, feel free to also share your experience at any point. And then I think we will also round off this this workshop. So it's currently 14:54, so we'll meet each other at 3:10. I wish you guys all the best of fun. All right. I hope you were able to dig a little deeper into that user perspective through the workbook. And I know that, perfect, thank you. I know that at the beginning of the session, Christoph Ferrans wrote his interest was to combine two powerful frameworks to engage people and unlock impact. That's one of the reasons why he's here. And I hope you were able to find that through this exercise as well and through what we talked about, especially in that aspect of engaging people. If you guys have any feedback or questions, please let us know. We'd love to hear it. And I think as you're typing, I just wanted to kind of give you this like last wrap up of inspiration. Yes, through your business and through your work, try to tap into the creative energy of every participant or every person around you so that innovative ideas can emerge. And I think that's, yeah, that's kind of like the main thing around also like this topic, what we were talking about. It's really just about being creative, finding that innovation through these different frameworks. And yeah, before we close, let's just go over the learnings. So the three main things that we hope that you take away from this workshop about developing a social business mindset is that systems thinking and design thinking are lenses of how we can perceive and understand societal problems. If you're more interested in that, there's so many resources out there. I know Dr. Violetta also left her contacts as well. So if you're interested to also get into systems thinking with her, go ahead and also visit. She has a wonderful website as well. Go over there, write her an email. And then second is we do not isolate stakeholders from their context. Rather, we try to empower them to be designers of the solution that we're trying to solve. Really value every input that you find from the people around you, from the people you work with. Each and every one of them have the potential to be designers. I think that's what Professor Yunus also always teaches us here at the Grameen family, is that every person has a creative potential. Every person is a social business entrepreneur. You just need to know it, and you need to like find the opportunity to become one. And so I think it's also part of our mission to empower other people to become social business entrepreneurs around us, or at least to be designers of solutions. Lastly, gather your user stories. It's a great way to gain insight to your stakeholders, to their goals, their values, and their issues. And with that, it will really enrich how you solve problems. Yeah, and I'm looking at our chat. I don't see any questions coming in from the exercise, so I'm guessing it was pretty straightforward as well. If anything, you can contact us anytime. We would love to just sit down and also talk to you guys about it. And yeah, that would be the end of our workshop. Don't forget to look at our whole workshop series. As we said, we already had 2 workshops about purpose and about the social business model Canva that happened. Make sure to check those out. They were also very, very insightful. And then next week on the 24th of October, same time, we will have a growth hacking workshop for social business. This will be conducted by our managing partner, Maria. She has a great background in marketing, and she will teach you how, as a social business entrepreneur with very little resources, you can actually create great presence on social media and getting that message across. Because like the last workshops, we've been working on our message so much. Now it's really about getting it out there effectively. So tune into that. It's also a really exciting workshop. I've done it before with her once, so it's really interesting. Lastly, we are also getting together in Berlin on the 9th of November. We'll be at Impact Hub Berlin, starting at 2 p.m. We will have workshops about social business, AI, and ESG. So it's very, very interesting. We're going to try to connect how social business can benefit now with the ESG movement, as we were talking about how can we have that conversation of change, and then as well how social business can benefit from AI. There's so many tools out there. It's actually a whole jungle now with the AI development. So it's learning about what tools work for you as a social business, how, because we have so many little resources already to begin with, how can we maximize that with the help of AI? So if you're interested in that, visit us in Berlin at the Impact Hub. We also have networking opportunities. We're going to be working with different social businesses who are going to be there. It's going to be a great time to also just learn from one another. And as well, we have moments of inspiration as well. So we're going to be also having some experts around who you can talk to, who you can learn from, and also yeah, it's just a great afternoon all in all to just kind of dig deeper into everything that we've been doing. And with that, I want to say thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your time. And we hope that you were able to get something out of this for yourself. And we're excited to see you in the next workshop.